All right, welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of Inside Fnatic's Brush. I am your host, Matt Scott. As usual, thank you for joining me today as we're going towards the end of the summer split. Only 2 weeks to go now. Week 6 has just finished last Saturday, and it's been another banger of a week. To be honest, a lot of surprises, a lot of contention between most of the teams. Actually, we'll talk about it in our LEC segments. Obviously, Fnatic finally going back towards their winning ways. Won 1 week. We'll talk about their loss. We'll talk about their win. How we can start maybe being a bit more positive for their next week games. We'll look at their opponents going into the last week and what we can expect at that moment, and obviously our weekly predictions. And I'll have with you guys some interesting results from the previous week, where, well, you'll see. I'll talk about it in that specific segment. But yeah, let's jump right in. Let's jump right into our LEC part recap of week 6. As you can see, I think in the history of the LEC and probably EU LCS, we've never had standings that close. From the 1st to 8th place, there's what? Sorry, from second to 8th place, there's 2 games. There's 2 wins separating them. That is as close as you can get. Now, with top of the standings, Mad Lions, which is one of our top teams of the week, Mad Lions has been on a mad winning streak as of lately. I believe on their last 5, even last 6, I think they're on a 6-game winning streak. Since week 4, they haven't dropped a game. And I mean, I spoke about it when we were going over summer split predictions and what we were expecting from the changes and the new players coming in. Is that I was saying Niski was going to be a great addition to Mad Lions because he's a super flexible player. He's done great stuff for Cloud9. He's done great stuff for Fnatic, and he's very much a plug and play type of player. So it looks now that Mad Lions has found their stride, has found their play style, and I mean, overall, if you look at what do you call it? If you look at their games in terms of meta, they've read the meta pretty well. Their drafts are on point, and on his on their what do you call it? On their play style, their aggression is well brought in the sense that they do everything as a team. They pressure the map properly. So right now, they're the team who's figured it out, and you can see it within the results. 6-game win streak, and there's no sign of stopping. Like, they haven't really been challenged so far. So there's a high chance that even with the 5 games that are left, that Mad Lions ends at the top of the standings. Going into the second place teams, Rogue and Vitality. Now, 2 surprises here. Rogue has been a bit on a losing streak. I believe they're 3 games loss, and had we won our game against them, um, which we started winning, and then obviously we eventually threw, they would have been on a 4-game loss streak. So I don't know what happens in the split with teams that hit the top of the standings and suddenly get struck by losing streak, because when Fnatic was at the top of the standings, they get a 5-game losing streak. When Excel's at the top of the standings, they get a 4-game losing streak. When G2 is at the top of the standings, they get a 4-game losing streak. Now Rogue is on a 3-game losing streak. Will it happen to Mad Lions? Probably not, but it would be funny if it did. So Mad Lions, obviously one of our worst team of the week, has struggled, has dropped a few games. Now 2 wins behind Mad Lions, who's really a top 1 team right now. But the other surprise is Vitality. Vitality, which I believe are on is it 2 or 3 game win streak? It's a 3-game win streak. Now Vitality, of all teams, has suddenly decided to play properly. They've been a team that's been struggling for, most of the season. If we even talk beyond this split, they had a complicated split. It seems that they have found their style now, and as I mentioned, Haru seems to be playing much better around his teammates. He's got less of that KDA style that he used to have, where it's like, I farm my jungle, I take a kill, and I go back to farming my jungle. He seems more proactive. But I think the other player has been having quite a surprising performance has been Alfari. Alfari has been a major disappointment at the beginning, well, since the beginning of the season, I should say. Is finally playing to the level we were expecting him to play, and it's helping the team quite a bit, because the biggest issue that he's always had was that he was very much a laning type of player, and when it comes to the mid to late game, the advantages he could have acquired through his laning phase, he was not applying them to the rest of the map. Now that seems completely different, and Vitality has kind of been in control of their wins. It hasn't been like very scrappy, close games. Like their last games against G2 on Saturday, G2 had no chance. Like they weren't even close. And G2 is actually our second worst team of the week. I know they went 1-1 this week, but if BDS was a team with human beings, that was a lost game. BDS was so far ahead, G2 had no reason to come back. Now, granted, you can say, well, that's just because G2 is a good team. Except right now, they're not. They're not. They came out of a 0-4 streak. They got 2 wins. And technically, there should be 0-2 last week. But BDS can't seem to be able to close the door to save their lives. So from that point, G2 gets away on a 7-6 record when it should be the other way around. They should be on that second half, bottom half of the standings. Excel is kind of struggling still since they're 0-4. And on the other hand, Misfits, who brought in Zanzara, and who obviously in between had the announcement of, I'd say selling. I was going to say losing, but they sold their LEC spot. You would think, maybe that hits the morale of a team to saying, well, we won't be continuing with this organization, so your future is a bit uncertain. because Heretics coming in doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to buy the full roster back, right? Who knows wherever these players are going to land next season, right? Obviously, there's a chance that what do you call it? That Heretics buys some of the players like VTO, Neon. Maybe instead they bring in guys like Jack Spectra. But what it felt like with Zanzara is that they had a new rhythm to their playstyle. I don't know how to describe it, and this is not like a proper analysis. This is just the feeling that I got from watching their games. Is that, well, there's a few things. First of all, this is a meta that's pretty good for Zanzara, who's famous for his Poppy, for his Trundle. He was strongly focused banned in the draft phase. So, and he still managed to get out with a pick of his usual champion pool. So that helped out quite a bit for him. But overall, compared to the previous game where it felt like Misfits was just maybe being a bit more mechanical than their opposition and having better team fights, especially Mursa and Irrelevant had a lot of games where they had a combination of ults, of plays that they had together. I'm thinking about the Gnar and Renata combo that they had for a few games that was working well from them, and they were really the ones who were carrying Misfits for a few games that helped them be on that first half of the standings. But they were kind of fallen off for, was it last week where they went 0? Oh, sorry, the week 4 I should say, where they went, no, week 4, week 5, week 5, where they went 0-2, I believe. And with Zanzara, it's just flipped the switch, and they look like a strong contender now for playoffs. That's the crazy part. And yeah, it's for that top 6 basically, it's super close. Because you also have Excel, who also went 0-2 this week when they had that strong momentum at the start of the split, and now they're on the 7-6 record. Obviously, bottom half, starting at the 7th position, we've got Astralis and Fnatic, who are technically out of playoffs contention if we keep the standings as they are. Just one win away from being into that top 6. So I know there's the meme in the LEC that every game counts, but for the next 5 games, literally every game counts. Like, you could not make this any closer. And any loss that any team can have is just going to completely change the standings. Because they're only a win away from each other. Obviously, BDS, with their loss against Fnatic last week, are out of playoffs for good, which obviously I don't think you can say anything about BDS that hasn't been said anymore. Absolute disappointment, this split. They've made some changes. I was expecting them to look much better in summer, and somehow they're actually looking worse. And I can't even begin to understand how the morale is in this team. Like, I think they just show up to the studio and they're like, just let us play our game, man. Let us play our game, and we'll be done with it. We don't want, we just want to see the season out. We don't even care if we get wins, because it doesn't change anything for them. Their playoff streams is dead. So yeah, SK started coming back, losing some games again. They're not completely dead in the water, but things got much more complicated for them. What are we saying? Razork inted his ass off last week. No, he didn't. He should have covered Wunder lane against Mad. What? Are you sure you've watched the game last week? That was not the issue. Wunder's lane was not the issue. Wunder was ahead in CS, and they constantly had people top lane with like Hilly and even Wunder when he went for the Herald was around there, and that's what helped them get those few kills afterwards, thanks to upset roaming. So yeah, I'm not sure where this comment is coming from, but yeah, Razork was definitely not the issue last week in any of the games. It was the Mad Lions game was just very poor decision once we had the lead, and yeah, actually, you know what? I think we should just go straight into Fnatic, since that seems to be a bit of a subject here. I'm trying to see if there's anything I'm missing from the LEC recap, but that's about it. That's all you need to know, guys. LEC, as tight as it could be with 2 weeks left, 5 games to be played, and any game that's going to be played is going to be a close game because its standings are so close, and literally all the teams are super competitive. Yeah, even the SK Astralis game that started on Friday was super close. It's like Astralis is winning now, SK is winning now, Astralis is winning. And it was not like an absolute clown show as well. It's like they were punishing the opponent's mistakes every time. So yeah, the everyone's saying, oh, the EU is getting weaker. Every year, actually, people say EU is getting weaker, and we're always getting the same results at Worlds. So I don't think it's getting weaker. It's getting stagnant, maybe. And maybe it will change with a fourth seeding this year. I don't necessarily think it will, but who knows? But if we genuinely look at the LEC and the level of competitiveness that it has, with obviously a clear first team, which is Mad Lions, which is the team to beat. If we're sending 4 teams that are super competitive, it can be an interesting Worlds. Then again, the way teams play at Worlds is a whole different basket. But yeah, that'll be my last remarks about the LEC for week 6. Let's go straight ahead and talk about Fnatic, currently on a 6-7 record, technically out of playoffs as it stands, joint 7th with Astralis. Won 1 week. It seems that I haven't updated the proper visual here. Have I trolled myself? I think I've trolled myself. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Give me simply 2 seconds, guys. I'll get you the right visual. The visual I just get from Fnatic's post game, by the way. I'm very lazy, but it's not really that I'm lazy. It's more that I suck at creating good visuals. I'll always have an idea of a visual, but I'm unable to present it properly. Did we not have? I guess not. I guess it didn't make a visual. yeah, whatever. Okay, listen, guys, you'll just have to live with it. I'm using the. I mean, it's a loss anyway, so I'm just using the the loss against Excel. Just actually, you know what? I'll cheat it. I'll cheat it for you guys. With the magic of OBS. It's not OBS. What's Streamlabs? Sorry. I'll just put this logo right here, and it's all the same. It's all the same, guys. There we go. Fnatic versus Mad Lions. You've seen nothing. This is the results. But yeah, 1 week. Let's start with the Mad Lions game. And actually, before I start with the Mad Lions game, I have a bit of a observation to make. Is that, aside of the Excel game, which was a complete stomp, what kind of annoys me is that the games that we've lost, we actually started by winning, by being ahead. And at some point, we completely lose our minds and decide to throw it. There's always at one point where we are ahead in terms of objectives or goals or both. And then I don't know what happens, is that a bit like last year when we had Whippos, that we take the fight that we don't need to take and we put ourselves in a losing condition. Or we can just, apply the macro that we've used to apply and continue going forward. And the Mad Lions game was just another example of that. We had the very early game where we, I believe, lost 2. And then as we try to contest for Herald, the fight starts kind of bad. But in exchange, Upset gets a good roam with Humanoid, who collapses, get a triple kill for Humanoid, which is insane, And almost like, less than 5 minutes afterwards, we for some reason decide to catch them and chase them in their own half of the jungle, and we completely lose it. And the thing is that maybe against another team, this would be just a minor setback and be like, it's fine, we can still be in control of the game, it's just one bad play. When you're playing against the best team right now, which is Mad Lions, you're pretty much signing the end of the game from that play. And that's really what annoyed me, is that I genuinely think that we could have won that game against Mad Lions had we not gone for that stupid play. Because once Mad Lions was back in the lead, they just did what they usually do, which is gain control of the map, gain control of the objectives, and play their game. And they just win because their execution is the best right now in the league. So again, it's super disappointing to see that we weren't able to just stay in control, keep that lead, even play a bit more slowly, a bit slower this time, and not necessarily. What it feels is like once we have the lead, we feel like we need to absolutely crush our opponent by catching them off and just try to get kills right, left, and center, instead of just playing the map, getting some vision control, and avoid getting ganked ourselves, and instead maybe play for neutral objectives setup. So yeah, the Mad Lions game, I think an expected loss. The thing is that considering our standing, we can't necessarily abide those losses. We can't afford losing too many games within the last weeks. If we didn't have this 0-4 week, sure. The thing is that, again, every game counts, and even more for Fnatic. Now, statistically, there we go. That was a complicated word. Statistically, we need 3 more wins. Because usually a 9-9 finish should get you into playoffs. Maybe with some tiebreakers. So within the next 5 games, we need to win a majority of them, which is a bit of a challenge considering the level we're playing at and the teams we'll be facing. I'll talk about it a bit later. So, even if there's a bit of a better display on the game, still a loss that was complicated. And again, some of the draft picks, very questionable. Jace? Hasn't Jace been nerfed since? Actually, let me check something. Real quick. Because I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly. We were blue side. And the first pick we go for is Wukong. I don't get that. I don't get why Wukong's actually a priority in this current meta. Usually teams will go for Gwen, Talia, maybe Renata. I think Renata Glask is a super contested pick as well. From what I remember, I'm pretty sure that. Actually, I should have checked the draft, but I'm pretty sure that Gwen gets first pick quite a bit in the league right now, because it's such a stupid strong pick. Like, if you guys watch the games where Gwen gets picked, even if she has a bad early game, her scaling is absolutely bonkers, and she takes over team fights. She goes like full snip, presses R a couple of times. She heals, deals true damage, and then it's just like, yep, I've just wiped the whole enemy team, and no one can 1v1 her. So that means she can go into a side lane and do whatever the fuck she wants. And 2, she can do AoE damage with her ultimate while still being immune with her friggin' Shroud. Wunder plays a very good Gwen. We've seen it before. Why just not go for it? It's open. Instead, you leave it open for Armut, and completely shreds us. So I don't know. I at least for that game, the drafts were super questionable. If Fnatic loses the next 2 games, it's over. It's not over, but it becomes very complicated, because that means for the Super Week, they have to win all their games. Because Super Weeks is 3 games. And I'll show you guys in a minute. I'm sorry, I'm all blurry. Let me fix that real quick. Am I still blurry? I'm not blurry. Cool. Sorry, yeah, for the final week, it's not going to be a walk in the park, depending on our level. If we were to say that, oh yeah, we should be winning because we have a great team, if we were playing at our level, it would be a walk in the park. But that's not where we're at right now. We have to take into consideration our current level. So it's not the end of the world, but it becomes insanely complicated seeing how close the standings are. So it would mean a perfect Super Week, and that's just, it wouldn't surprise me, because this is the stress levels that Fnatic usually give us. So maybe it's written in the books that we have to have a perfect week 8, perfect Super Week. But hopefully not. Hopefully we get 2 wins next week, and we just at least have to secure 1 win going forward. Obviously, what's his name? Humanoid joked about it in his interview after the BDS game. It was like, oh, we're just going to win the next 5 games, but I won't comment on it. We'll see. I want to see some actions. I want to see some improvement. Speaking of improvement, the BDS game, I was happy to finally see Talia pick. And it's crazy is that as soon as you get picks that are much easier to play for the team, and you don't have to scramble for like a friggin' zillion to make sure that your team doesn't die the moment they go in, and provide a bit of survivability. Instead, go for some good picks like the Talia, the Nautilus, which seems to be back as a power pick. Sivir, which is pretty good at controlling lane. Gragas. I mean, it is getting played, but there's other pryos. But it's Wunder playing it, so it's still fine. I was still a bit, about the pick, because the issue, right, is that we banned Gwen. Sorry, guys. I'm bored by myself. we banned Gwen, so I'm guessing it's like either you pick Gwen first and you open Talia for them, or you ban Gwen and you pick Talia. I'm still not too sure how the thing is, but at least here we went first pick Talia, and I was like, oh my god, finally, we're actually finally going for a power pick. And our draft was much better all around. Good initiation, good engage with good burst damage, and it showcased during the game. Like a lot of people were critical about Humanoid. Humanoid had, I think he had a good game against Mad Lions until everything kind of crumbled and he had that one bad move. But on a game against BDS, now everyone's going to say, oh, but it's BDS, you're expected to win, blah, blah. A win is a win. When you're a team that's 0-5, it doesn't matter who the opponent is, because you can pretty much lose to anyone, right? So Hystelia was very good. He had some great Weaver's Wall. I'd say the only issue was that I don't think he knew at the beginning that you could choose which side of the wall you want to exit, because sometimes he was trying to divide a team fight in two, and instead of being on the side of his teammates, completely isolated himself and screwed up everything. But he saved it, towards the mid game. Had a good pick onto limit while waiting in the brush. Good poke damage. Overall, great game from him. Great game from the team, I'd say. Overall, a few things. Much needed win in terms of mental reset, because once you get into that losing streak, it's super hard to get out from it. Even if it's BDS in front, anything could have happened, and we could have just gone into, I'm going to say, a very dark spiral of losses. And it's good to kind of break that rhythm of losses and get back into the winning ways. Second, finally seeing some signs of picking meta picks. I want to continue to see that trend going forward. Our draft is still awful. I mean, our draft have been awful so far. A bit better for BDS, in my opinion. At least some glimpses that we're finally seeing the power picks. Again, they probably see the power picks, but from the audience, from us, from our perspective, it's like, well, okay, sure, you're telling me that you understand the meta, but you're not picking the right champions. So I'm hoping we continue going forward. I want to see some Talia again. I want to see some Gwen, some Renata. Sivir, if it's still looking strong. Very much, of a lane pick. Obviously, you get that advantage. You get that pressure. And yeah, I think if we continue on that trend, we make it much easier on ourselves to win games. Basically, I'm not saying it's a automatic win, but we've just been making it harder on ourselves to win those games. It's always been through draft and having comps that are kind of weird, where there's a champion, like, why is that champion even in that draft? And still, we were able to get leads within those games before we eventually threw it. So, yeah, I just want to see more of that consistency within draft and within our play style. And I think this will make it much easier for us going into the next games. And speaking of which, I've actually done a little recap of the next 5 games that we'll be having. So next week, SK versus G2. Last week, Astralis, Vitality, Misfits. There's not a single easy game in front of us. The easy game was against BDS. All these teams are challenging for a playoff spot. Some of them already being in that top 6, some of them looking to get into that top 6. As you can see, I've put their win and loss streak, their last 5, with SK being a bit hit and miss. They had a good win streak on a few weeks ago. Now they've lost, won and lost. So I think SK, even though they're looking quite scary, should be an attainable win. Obviously, the big game this week will be against G2. G2, who have had they've gone 0-4, and then they've gone into a 3-game win streak, and they're on a loss against Vitality. Technically, they should have been a loss against BDS, but BDS is just such a god-awful team that they still managed to snatch a win. But, G2, very much like Fnatic, don't look great. And, a lot of people have been memeing, Fnatic G2, game of the week. Game of the week is in WEAK, which, again, is fair, but I think this will be a very even game because both teams are not at the level we expect from them. And if the improvement we've shown against BDS continues to carry within this week, then I think we can actually exploit G2's poor recent form to grab another win. So, I'd like to predict the 2-0 for next week with the mindset that we're actually continuing to improve on what we've currently done with the team so far. The final week, however, Astralis, Vitality, Misfits, 3 teams that are looking very good, 3 teams that are above us in the standings right now. Astralis with a loss, win, loss, win. So they've, a bit like SK, had a bit of ups and downs, but still looking quite competitive overall. Vitality, which I think is going to be the biggest problem on the last week, they are in form. They're in form. They could easily be second following this week's games. It's going to be very interesting to see how they show up this week and if they're continuing on their momentum, because the momentum is on their side right now. And if they continue their win streak, then they're going to be a very scary team going into the Super Week. And finally, Misfits. Misfits who went 0-2 last week and now 2-0 with Zanzara's edition. I don't know if Zanzara is going to continue to be playing for the next few weeks. It looks like it, because no announcement have been made about Zlatan coming back. So I'm expecting Misfits to continue with Zanzara. Does that necessarily mean they're going to continue winning? That's a good question. Maybe, teams were surprised about Zanzara's playstyle. Zanzara, again, is lucky to be playing in his own meta right now, so he's very much into his space. But will teams have a better read over him in the weeks to come. We will see. But overall, if I had to project myself, I say we go 2-0 next week to start some momentum going into our side, and especially going into the Super Week. Going into the Super Week, if again, ideally, we're continuing that progress, we're continuing to get those wings and improving, we're probably looking at a 2-1 Super Week. I'd say a win against Astralis and Misfits. Maybe a loss against Vitality, considering their recent form. I think in the end, we'll probably be 5th or 6th, unfortunately, which means a complicated loser gauntlet, loser run. But as I mentioned, who knows? The standings are super close. Any win, any loss can completely change the landscape. We right now have almost, I wouldn't say a clear top 6, obviously, but we have a top 6 team, and easily could be some teams that are dropping into the lower bracket and not make it to playoffs within the next week. So, playoffs are reachable depending on our level of improvement. Now it's all about acting on that improvement, which obviously we'll talk about in this week's prediction, week 7. I believe on both days we have the same predictions, so this is going to be a quick one, really. I don't think there's that many crazy games. Maybe the last 2 ones of day 1, Rogue versus Mad. I think Mad is going to crush Rogue, looking at Rogue's recent performances. G2 versus Excel. I think we agree that G2 isn't looking great, and Excel could be taking this one. With that said, Excel did end last week on the 0-2 result, so could go. G2 versus Excel could go either way. I think Rogue versus Mad, pretty straightforward. Hopefully, SK Fnatic goes in the way of Fnatic. I want to believe in that one. Vitality BDS. I mean, is there even a risk in there? Misfits Astralis. Actually, you know what? 4 out of... Okay, I'm going to say 3. I'm not going to put it... Oh, okay. 4 out of the 5 games are actually pretty close when you talk about it, Misfits against Astralis, thinking about it, Misfits could very clearly win this one. I think it's going to be another close game like the SK Astralis game. But yeah, for day 1. Day 2, Vitality Astralis. I think Vitality has the better momentum, but Astralis could always, surprise Excel BDS. Why do we even talk about BDS? Misfits versus Mad Lions. Again, Misfits looking a bit better, but Mad Lions just the top team right now. There could be an upset here, but I don't think it'll be happening. Rogue versus SK. It's a lot of momentum of performance on the moment. I still think Rogue should be able to beat SK, but we can still be surprised. G2 versus Fnatic. We need to win this for so many reasons: for the rivalry, for the standings, for bragging rights, all of that stuff. We want to believe. We want to believe, guys. Yeah, that's going to be my predictions for the week. Our scores are neck and neck, 36 points to 36. So it won't change, obviously, this week. And it probably won't change until playoffs, because I'll be away on holiday, guys. So this is my last podcast until playoffs. I'm away for the next 2 weeks, so there won't be a week 7 recap nor a week 8 recap, which is a bit sad, obviously. 2 super important weeks would have been great topics to talk about, but Matt Scott needs some time off, time in the sun, time at the beach. Need to get my tan on. As you can see, I'm pale as a piece of bread. So yeah, that'll be all for me, guys. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show and you want to follow everything, socials, I always forget to point in the right direction. Matt Scott _ personal account at IFB podcast account. Find all the VODs on Inside Fnatic Brush YouTube and on Spotify since a few weeks. Thank you for the people who've been listening onto Spotify. I hope the format is working well in terms of sound, in terms of understanding what I'm saying, despite the lack of visuals that you would have on a live episode. But yeah, that's all for me, guys. I'm going on holiday. If you're on holiday as well, enjoy your time off. I'll see you for playoffs. Hopefully, Fnatic will have made it. If not, when I'll be molding in the sun. So I guess it's not too bad for me. Until next time, guys, always Fnatic. Take care.